Hello everyone! Welcome to a new series I'm creating called Mascot Concepts, where I create mascots for sports teams that don't have a mascot. For example, today for episode 1, I'm going to be creating mascot characters for the NFL team, the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are one out of the 5 teams in the NFL that don't have a mascot. But that's going to change today as I've created 3 different concepts for a Packers mascot. So without further ado, let's get started. Before I share my first mascot concept, I should explain how I come up with the mascots for teams without one. I usually think of the team itself. For example, I think back to their history and do a little bit of research into what would represent them best. I also think of where they play at, that being the state or city, as well as merchandise, since some of these teams use a fake mascot in their merchandise. So with all that information out of the way, here's the first mascot concept for the Green Bay Packers. So the first mascot I've created is actually somewhat of an official mascot in terms of merchandise, that being a cow. Now you're probably wondering, what does a cow have to do with the Packers? Well, if you know their history, then it'll make sense. You see, the Packers were founded in 1919 and joined the NFL in 1921. They were actually created by a meatpacking company. And where does meat come from? Cows. Another reason as to why a cow mascot makes sense is because Packers fans show up to games wearing these cheese hats. They refer to themselves as the Cheeseheads. And where does cheese come from? You guessed it, cows. Also, cows rarely ever get used as mascots, not counting bulls, so it would make this mascot unique. But all that aside, here's the design. Here's my first design for a Packers cow mascot. This design is based on several pieces of merchandise released, but I've changed it up a little bit. I gave him the name of Willie because the Packers play in the state of Wisconsin. If anyone else has a better name, put it in the comments. And yes, I know I'm referring to Willie as a male, even though cows are female. But there's already a bull mascot in the NFL, and most professional mascots are male, so I'm just continuing the tradition. I kept the helmet from the merch designs because I thought it looked better, and I also decided not to give this cow horns for that specific reason. This version I gave a sort of stern look, like he's ready to play football, but he still has a smile. I can't make him too scary or he'll scare kids. And if this design was made into a costume, the vision holes would be in the nostrils and eyes. One change I made to the head was removing the snow on top of his nose. I just thought that looked weird, especially with his nose already being white. His outfit is largely unchanged, except it's a little brighter, at least with the shirt. That could also be swapped out with a jersey. But I also decided to give him pants. Or really, they're shorts. Kind of like what the Bengals mascot Houday wears. And last but not least, his legs and feet remain virtually unchanged. Although he now has a tail. Not sure if the original one had a tail. Now if this stern version of Willie isn't for you, I decided to create a slightly sillier version, where I took inspiration from other professional silly mascots. He has a similar head to Blue, the Colts mascot, but he doesn't have party favors in his nose or googly eyes. The person inside will be able to see out the mouth with no problems. And because he's not wearing a helmet, I gave him short horns and white hair with streaks of green and yellow Packers colors. His body didn't change too much besides being fatter, although he has more spots. He's also wearing a jersey, and I debated on giving him pants, but in the end I decided to give him pants. His tail is different, as you may notice. It's curved. It's actually supposed to look like the Packers logo, which is the letter G. And this time I actually gave him shoes instead of being barefoot. And by the way, no, those are not little Pac-Mans on his shoes. They're supposed to be cheese wheels. So those are the cow mascot concepts for the Packers. Overall, I think this is the one that they should go with. But now I move on to the next mascot concept for the Packers. The next mascot I created is also another sort of official mascot, strictly used for merchandise, that being a polar bear. Now what does a polar bear have to do with the Packers? Well, nothing really, other than the Packers play in Wisconsin, which snows a lot, and it gets extremely cold there. But here's the first design. The first design is the stern version, or in other words, the skinny athletic version. I actually don't have a name for this polar bear mascot, so please suggest names in the comments. The head was kind of a challenge as I wanted it to look fierce but not scary enough to scare kids. But I still think the teeth will scare some people. However, the teeth are there because that's where the person inside would look out of, same with the eyes. I also decided to give him a beard, for no reason whatsoever. And if you're wondering what he's wearing, it's an old school football helmet, as I was inspired by this hat. The body isn't anything too special, it's just a regular Packers uniform, except I gave him a long sleeve shirt because it reminded me of vintage football outfits to go along with the hat. I gave him giant white paws, but with claws because he's ferocious, but not as ferocious as his tiny little tail. And to finish it off, I gave him snowshoes instead of regular football shoes because I believe no mascot should wear normal human-sized shoes. So just like the cow, I decided to make another version of the polar bear, but this one was the sillier version. I took many inspirations when designing this mascot, mostly NHL mascots, but also Casey Wolf from the Kansas City Chiefs, and once again Blue from the Indianapolis Colts. His head is similar to the previous versions, with him still having a large nose and vintage hat. However, I removed the beard and gave him googly eyes, making him look a lot younger. And speaking of younger, I gave him an open mouth with two spaced out teeth. The mouth is where the person looks out of, and so is the nose. His body's just a standard fat body covered in white fur, and he doesn't have claws this time but instead giant paw pads. He only wears a Packers jersey, but if you look closely you can see a black bear paw in the 0. I decided not to give him pants because he's a polar bear, with a lot of fur, and pants wouldn't really look right. He also just wears regular green sneakers. Overall, I love the idea of a polar bear mascot for the Packers, and it's definitely a great choice. However, there's only one problem with this being the Packers mascot. You see, the Packers are in the NFC North, and are rivals with the Chicago Bears, whose mascot is, well, a bear. And so to have your team mascot be a bear while your division rival's mascot is also a bear wouldn't really make sense. Although it would be a funny middle finger to the Bears if they did that. But anyway, let's move on to the last mascot concept for the Packers. So the last mascot I created is my least favorite, and also the one that the Packers would least consider, and that is a piece of cheese. Okay, so I'm actually serious right now, let me explain. So earlier I said the Packers have fans who wear cheese on their heads, and call themselves cheeseheads. And so this mascot is kind of a tribute to those. But anyway, here it is. Okay, so you could probably guess who I took inspiration from. If not, then it's Boltman, the unofficial Chargers mascot. This cheesehead is basically the same, except he's cheese. And he doesn't have a name either, so once again, people in the comments suggest a name. So there's not much to say on this mascot. He's really just a normal player with cheese for a head, and arms. I will say that for the head, I based it off of some cheese puppets from Sesame Street. And he's wearing those gloves where you overlap them and it forms the team logo. Before I end this video, I want to talk about some honorable mentions for the Packers mascots. The first one is a bulldog, mostly because I found some bulldog Packers plushes on Facebook. I don't really know what bulldogs have to do with the Packers, although the University of Georgia's mascot is a bulldog, and they have the exact same logo as the Packers, so that wouldn't be a good idea. And this last one is this weird green bearded guy with cheese on his head. I think he's a little too scary to be a mascot, and human mascots are not liked by most. And besides, we already have Sourdough Sam. And there you have it, mascot concepts for the NFL's Green Bay Packers. I know that some Packers fans may not actually want a mascot, and I can respect that, but this video is just for fun, okay? However, if anybody working for the Packers is watching this, please consider getting a team mascot. It'll definitely help you. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next month for another mascot concept video. Bye-bye.